Please be seated. Good evening. I'm Councillor Shamila Sivaraja, and I would like to welcome you to this extraordinary full council meeting. As this is an extraordinary meeting, there will be no public question time this evening in line with the council's constitution. The next meeting at which we will be accepting questions from the public will be the full council meeting scheduled for 25th February 2026. There are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of fire alarm sounding, please leave the building via the main spiral staircase and through the main reception doors. Once outside, please turn left and make your way to the fire assembly point located beyond the multi-storey car park on Exchange Road. If you are unable to use the stairs, please wait in the council chamber and you will be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the council's YouTube channel. Please note that there is no comments function available as part of this webcasting. The council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during this webcast. This will be done so in accordance with the council's published data retention policy. Any member of the public seated in the public gallery should be aware that by entering the chamber, they are consenting to their image being captured by the automated camera system. Recordings will be used for webcasting and/or training purposes. Councillors have received an electronic copy and a paper copy of the agenda and paperwork for tonight's meeting. The public agenda and reports for this meeting are available on the council's website. We will now start the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have 3 apologies. Councillors Hart, Helia and Lanza.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest councillors wish to declare? Councillor Crowe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A personal non-prejudiced interest as a member of West Sussex County Council.
Councillor Burgess?
Same here.
Right. Thank you. I have been asked to read the following statement. Whilst the full council is not taking the final decision whether to continue or postpone the elections, the monitoring officer has provided dispensation to all councillors whose term of the office is due to end in May 2026. Due to a possible disclosable personal interest arising from councillors, allowance to enable those councillors to fully participate in the debate and voting. The dispensations are made under Section 33 of the Localism Act 2011 on the grounds that it was considered in the public interest to allow full debate and decision making. Any other reasons as set out in Section 33 of the Localism Act. These dispensations are granted for this meeting only. We will now move on the main agenda item 3, Borough Election 2026. Before we start this item, I will explain the procedure for this evening's meeting. I will firstly invite the Chief Executive, Ian Duke, to introduce the report CEX/074. I will then open the debate on the report, where each councillor will be given the opportunity to speak on the debate. With the standard 5-minute time limit per member, I will warn councillors when there is 30 seconds left. Unlike standard full council meeting, councillors will also be able to ask a question or seek clarity on any aspect of the report. The Chief Executive will respond. Once there are no further speakers, I then ask for movers and seconders for any of the options as set out in section 5.2 of the report. If any of these options are not moved, they will not be voted upon. I will then move to the voting process, where I intend to hold a single vote on the moved options. The options which receives the most votes will be the full council's recommended to the Cabinet for its consideration. Finally, before we start this item, and mainly for those members of the public in attendance or watching online, this meeting of the full council will only be providing a steer to the Cabinet and will not making the decision over whether to hold or postpone Crawley's Borough May 2026 election. The Cabinet then, at its separate meeting, which will take place later this evening, will then agree upon the Council's submission to the Government over holding or postponing Crawley Borough May 2026 election. The ultimate decision on whether the election takes place will be a central government's decision. Having explained the procedure, I will now ask the Chief Executive present the report to the full Council. Ian Duke. Yeah.
I'm not sure this is a point of order or housekeeping, but normally we would have a 5-minute clock on the board. I don't know if that's possible to have that arranged or if it's too late. Okay, no problems, but I thought I'd ask. Thank you.
We'll make sure there is 30 seconds or timing.
Ian Duke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors. On the 18th of December, a letter was sent by the Minister of State for Local Government and Homelessness to Councillor Jones as leader of the council. This letter requested that the leader provide a view as to whether the borough elections for 2026 should be postponed and whether such a postponement would release essential capacity to allow for the delivery of local government reorganisation in the area. Receipt of the letter came as a surprise. The government's previous position was that a request for postponement should be made as part of our submission in September. For transparency and for recollection, this council did not make such a request in September, and neither has it made any representation on this issue subsequently. The deadline for that response is midnight tomorrow, 15th of Jan. The letter from the Minister is clear that the context for any such request is in relation to local government reorganisation. And over the last period, we've established a precedent as to how such requests related to local government reorganisation are responded to. This extraordinary meeting of full council and the meeting of cabinet that will take place afterwards has been organised in a way that's consistent with the way that we have made these decisions previously. At the risk of repeating some of what the Mayor has already covered, I think it is important, again, just to reinforce that the role of full council tonight is to provide a steer for cabinet that will then consider the direction that the response will take to the Minister and for the leader to then submit it. It's important again to just repeat that the decision on whether or not to postpone or proceed with the elections rests solely with the government. This council's response will only inform that decision by government. The government has, however, indicated that it will place significant weight on the council's view, and it is also indicated that it is content to make decisions on whether elections proceed or not on a place-by-place and a case-by-case basis. In reaching a position, members are reminded that the central consideration of the question being asked within the letter is one of capacity, specifically whether postponement would release essential capacity to allow for the delivery of local government reorganisation. From an officer viewpoint, including my role as returning officer, planning for both the borough and the county elections is well underway. Local government reorganisation does indeed create additional burden on the council. However, to date, no organisational capacity constraints have been identified that would result in us as officers making any recommendation for the postponement of elections, and that's reflected in the report. The report does, however, recognise that the issue of capacity goes beyond organisational considerations, and it lists some of those other considerations that members may want to consider within the report. And these are not exclusive. There may be others that go beyond those that are listed in the report. Consistent with the approach in taking forward LGR-related debates, there is no recommendation. The report sets out the information members need to undertake the debate and the three broad options available to them in terms of the response. At this stage, I'm not planning to say anything further as members have had the report, but to confirm, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to try and answer any questions that might emerge as part of the debate.
Thank you, Ian. I will now open up the debate to the floor. Please indicate in the normal fashion if you wish to speak during the debate. Once I call you in, please do not press the microphone as it will be turned on for you. We will start debate with Councillor Michael Jones, Leader of the Council. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for kindly granting my request to call an extraordinary meeting of this council at such short notice. Members will be aware that just before the Christmas break, the government wrote to each council in the devolution priority areas, of which we are one, offering the option to cancel our arrangements for scheduled elections for the borough in May 2026. We are working on the government's timetable, not ours, so I regret if the short notice means we do not have every single member present, but it was unavoidable given the timescales. I need to make it clear that this council did not request such a letter, and nor has Crawley Borough Council previously requested any postponement. There is a common misconception that we delayed elections last year. That is untrue. There were no borough elections scheduled for 2025. It was the county council who postponed their elections, and they are asking for a further postponement. In all of this, because of the significance of this issue, I have tried to do the right thing, and so I felt the only fair and transparent way to reflect the view of members was to open this up and hold an extraordinary full council so this could be debated and voted on. Unlike the County Council, I did not want this decision to be taken behind closed doors, and I think they made a grievous mistake in doing so. My own position, however, has been clear throughout. Yes, there are reasons that could be offered to the government for how elections would affect the capacity of this council and take up its time in a way that could impact on local government reorganisation in the devolution programme. The report prepared by our officers, however, goes into more detail about that, what that might involve. I do not intend to speak about that. I think it is written clearly enough, and councillors have all had a chance to read the report and hopefully have taken it. But I am not personally persuaded that they are sufficient to justify delaying the elections. Tonight's vote, Madam Mayor, at least on the Labour Group's side, will be a free vote. I'm told that some scepticism has been expressed that that will be the case, but if it has, those saying it, I think, might be eating their words tonight. Opinion on this in our discussions has been divided, and I anticipate members on my side to vote accordingly. We do not postpone or cancel elections lightly in this country, Madam Mayor. I would remind members that the only reason to support the sending of a letter to government requesting a postponement tonight is if you truly believe this is necessary to achieve the reorganisation and devolution that the government have set an extremely tight and ambitious schedule towards achieving. But that's a judgment call, and we have certainly the scope to respectfully disagree on what is the right conclusion in this situation. However, it cannot be for self-serving reasons. It should not be because anyone is scared of losing. Who might be elected instead, or what is at stake for future policy decisions? This is always the case when any elections approach, and we have never shied away from them on those grounds before, and rightly so in my opinion. The only thing that members here tonight should be questioning is solely whether there are enough reasons there to justify calling for a postponement. And for the record, Madam Mayor, I strongly refute any suggestion that we are trying to avoid elections. I believe that most residents recognise that CBC are performing well. We have a successful record of delivery and achievements and a strong vision for the future that I am more than prepared to submit to the electorate with confidence. Members will have seen from the report and the appendices that there are three potential options for a letter of response to the government. One is to confirm that we wish to proceed with the elections and decline the government's invitation. The second is to confirm that we wish to make the request to postpone the election. The third is not to express a view either way, except to state that whatever the decision the government makes, it should be consistent with both tiers of local government, i.e. they both go ahead for borough and county or neither. While this latter choice might at first sight seem like an attractive compromise, this would not be sufficient under the legislation to be considered a direct request for a postponement of borough elections from the government's point of view. Members could support this letter, but they should be doing so under no illusions. This would mean that they are indicating they wanted the borough elections to go ahead. To my mind, we need to be clear whichever indication we wish to give. It should be stressed as well that any postponement is down to the government. It's their decision, not ours, but they can only legally consider one if we make the request. Indeed, if it is possible, should we make one, that the government is not convinced of the arguments we make and decide they will continue to take place. In finishing, Madam Mayor, I will express, if I may, some dissatisfaction that we've been put in this position. It is likely when this has been decided across the country to see an entirely inconsistent position where some elections will take place and in other areas they will not, where there is no more discernible difference in the disruption caused by the arrangements for LGR and devolution. The government might argue that this would merely reflect local decision-making, but that is the point. It is not our decision to make, and in truth, neither should it be. We did not stop for COVID when there were far stronger arguments about public health and social distancing, so we should not stop now. I encourage all members to bear in mind what I've said in this introduction before they cast their vote this evening. The bottom line to members on both sides, whatever you want, you'll have to vote for it and be accountable for your decision. You know my views. Thank you.
Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm happy to hear that it's a free vote tonight on both sides, is my understanding. And in that sense, this is probably the most important debate I've been party to in my year and a half as an elected councillor, because I'm hoping I can kind of carry some people with me. And not only is it the most important debate I've been a part of, but it's also generated a huge amount of interest across Crawley, because people recognise correctly that it's their democratic rights that are on the line. I know councillors on both sides are really wrestling with this, and honestly, by rights, this decision shouldn't even be ours. It's only here because the government's botched reorganisation and they want to offload the unpopular decisions to local councillors. All that being said, though, we can't ignore that there's a vital principle at stake here, up against which all the arguments for delay, and if we're being honest, for cancellation, a delayed election in this context is a cancelled election. The arguments for delay are irrelevant in the face of people's democratic rights. And at the heart of these arguments for delay, there's a real logical problem. If we vote to cancel, we'd be using powers that we only possess because we were elected to then say that the elections themselves are somehow optional. But if elections are optional, how can any of us say that we're here legitimately in the first place? Elections aren't a discretionary extra, something we hold when it's convenient or when budgets allow. They're the foundation of this council's authority. Elections aren't given power because we consent for them to happen. We only have power because of the consent that's been given to us through elections. And to deny an election on our own whim is to completely reverse that fundamental democratic logic. We shouldn't even have the power to do this because the power isn't rightfully ours. You'll hear it said that there isn't a strong business case for holding elections, that they're not worth the money. But a council isn't a business. Elections aren't something that can be moved down a priority list like other types of spending when it feels inconvenient. And in any case, officers have been clear that these elections can be delivered. There is no capacity crisis here, it's only a question of principle. When something's fundamental, we don't haggle over the cost, and history shows that democracy's always demanded far higher prices than anything we're discussing tonight. And yet we're being asked tonight to say that elections aren't worth holding, not because of invasion or emergency, but because the resulting mandate would only last 2 years. But by that logic, we never hold by-elections, and frankly, we'd struggle to justify ever holding elections at all. We're about to enter the final 2 years, and arguably the most important years, in this council's history. And when we last held local borough elections in 2024, local government reorganisation wasn't in anyone's manifesto, so we can't just pretend that our personal opinions have been, endorsed by the public, especially, not by a survey that not everybody even received. The people of Crawley need to have a chance to make their voice heard in a binding election before this council wraps up. A survey isn't a substitute for an election. And I know elections always carry a certain amount of disruption with them, and in the end, I might not share the values of people that residents choose to put here, but ultimately the public can't make the wrong decision because it's their decision to make, not ours. Long after this reorganisation is complete and people look back on this council, the main thing people will remember is this. Did we use the process as an opportunity to, on the flimsiest pretense, deny the democratic rights of the people who put us here? On that question, I want the council to be unambiguous in recognising the rightful holders of political power in Crawley and ask the government to return that power to them as scheduled this year. Not a single one of us in this chamber is more important or more worthy of an opinion than the people who put us here. We exercise authority on their behalf, and we're here because of the trust that they've put in us in our own elections. And that trust was that we would give power back to them at the end of our terms. So all I ask is this, is that we not betray that trust now by denying them the election that they're entitled to.
Thank you. Councillor Lunnan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was also surprised when this request came through for government, perhaps for different reasons than to those laid out in the report, because I've been doing some research. Since 2010, 44 district or county councils in England have been amalgamated into unitary authorities, as is planned for Crawley. Over that time, from the research I've carried out, there's been an introduction of shadow authority elections in the later reorganisation. So roughly half had shadow authority elections, which we're going to have next year, and roughly half didn't. Nevertheless, whether going into direct elections or into shadow elections, which we'll be going to, there has not been a single authority, not one, who has held an election the year before the new authority elections were due to be held, which is the situation we're in this year, whether shadow or otherwise. This seems to me fairly compelling evidence that the precedent is that councils about to go extinct, which we are, do not hold elections the year before the new council elections. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, Crawley elects in thirds. Is this always the case? And are there equivalent councils in that situation? And you can rest assured and not have to do the research yourself. There were 6 councils out of the 44 that were in our situation where they elected in thirds and they didn't have elections. That was Weymouth and Portland Borough, Purbeck, Daventry, Carlisle, South Lakeland and Craven, all due to hold a thirds election the year before the new elections, and not one of them did. Notably, the last 3, South Lakeland, Craven and Carlisle, were due to hold a shadow election the following year, exactly the same method that we're going into now. So a shadow election the following year, due to hold a thirds election this year. They did not hold those elections at all. So what I don't know is in those cases where the government asked the relevant boroughs whether they wanted to postpone, as they have with us, or whether they just mandated it. I suspect the latter, that they just impose a cancellation of elections, which is why I'm surprised that this time, after 44 successful amalgamations of district and county councils into unitary authorities, the government has changed its approach and asked us instead. Indeed, some might wonder, similar to what Councillor Ramsey said, whether it's trying to pass the buck for what some may consider an unpopular decision onto other bodies. I don't disagree with that part of it. However, I was disappointed that none of that precedent that I went into the effort of finding out made it into the council report. And I think it's important because there's a lesson we can take from that precedent, is that democracy has survived in all those places. Dorset, Buckinghamshire, Northamptonshire, Cumbria and North Yorkshire are not deserts of democracy. If they can cope with a year without local council elections, I'm sure the residents of Crawley can too. And next year, there'll hopefully be more elections than residents will care for. There'll be new unitary authority elections, there'll be town council elections and possibly mayoral elections as well. So it's not as if we're going to be short of elections over the next couple of years. And I'm sure the residents of Crawley would also understand why these elections were cancelled if they are. Electing councillors for a one-year term is a waste of time, effort and money. I do not agree with the report that it would have little impact on the council. This council is relatively small and has a massive and frankly unknown style of project coming up in the way of reorganisation. And at the same time as that, we have an ambitious corporate plan including dealing with the housing crisis, possible delivery of a new town council and continual budget pressures. Without being critical, this is a council that still hasn't delivered the relatively complex Three Bridges forecourt improvement works, although that might be to the relief of some councillors and residents. But there's also large sections of the capital programme that have slipped, and we haven't even delivered the Goffs Park parking charge, which we announced over a year ago. There are things I don't doubt that this council has ambition. I credit it for the ambition, but the delivery of some of the projects it is responsible for has not always gone to plan. As a further example of where I disagree with the report, one of the priorities of this council is the delivery of the new town council, a direct consequence of local government reorganisation. The same person leading on this will also be responsible for the elections in May if they were to go ahead, so I cannot see how that wouldn't impact. Now, I acknowledge it's not a great look as a councillor due up for election this year that stating we should postpone those elections is a thing to be proud of. But, as I've said, this is what's happened everywhere else until this year, across the whole country, for this year, and is happening, as we've discovered, across Sussex this year. Both West Sussex and East Sussex County Council, Hastings Borough Council and Worthing Borough Council have all said they're not going to hold elections this year. We will be the only town holding elections this year. If we do, we will be the outlier in Sussex. And democracy will continue to flourish, I'm sure. But this council needs to focus on what it's already got on its plate and deliver for the residents, save money and make sure that what we are trying to do delivers successfully. That's why I'll be supporting postponement of elections. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not speaking in my group leader capacity tonight, but as an individual councillor. Like all councillors here, I am motivated to do the best for our town, and that means helping to ensure that we get the best for Crawley out of local government reorganisation, or LGR for short. It's important to understand we are having the biggest shake-up of local government for over 50 years. We did not ask for this, but we're having to do it. And at the same time, we're also undergoing devolution, and a combined mayoral authority is being set up this year, despite the Sussex mayoral elections taking place in 2028. LGR has happened in many other places before, and it has been standard practice, as Councillor Lunn said, that elections in those areas did not take place. as all the energies were focused on getting the best outcomes for those areas in setting up the unitary authority, and I want the best outcomes for Crawley. Now, the Cross-Party Local Government Association are the experts on this. The LGA web pages on LGR provide accurate and impartial information with a frequently asked questions page. And one question there asks, and I quote, "Have similar election delays happened before?" And the answer says, "There is a clear precedent for postponing local elections where LGR is in progress. For example, between 2019 to 2022, the previous government postponed elections in Buckinghamshire, Cumbria, North Yorkshire, Northamptonshire, Somerset and Weymouth and Portland." Now, what's different this time is the government have muddled the waters around local elections. 13 months ago, we were told by the government that in order to help with capacity for both LGR and devolution, that elections to the legacy councils would not take place as per the usual practice, with elections to the unitary authority taking place in May 2027. And that's only 15 months away. Next year will be a bumper year of elections, as we'll also be having a Crawley Town Council election, and that's as a direct consequence of LGR. Now, next year's double set of elections will also be followed by the mayoral election in 2028 and then the general election in 2029. So that is 4 sets of elections over 3 years from next year, which is hardly trying to deny democracy. Now, Crawley Borough Council is running out of time to get things done. We've got 14 months to be precise. We've got 1 full year left before next year's elections to the new unitary council. And bear in mind that nothing really happens until annual council in late May this year. So therefore, we're talking about 10 months until PERDA kicks in at the end of March 2027 for the unitary and town council elections. An election this year will also mean that we lose another 5 weeks of PERDA. This means we are talking about an election to elect councillors who would only have 10 months of opportunities for any major decision making, and it usually takes a whole year for any new councillors to undergo training and to learn the ropes. After March next year, our remaining business will be the winding down of this council. So are we really going to advocate to the government that we spend over £100,000 of Crawley taxpayers' money to hold an election for such a short term of office? Now, last night, Worthing Borough Council voted to seek a deferral, adding to West Sussex, East Sussex, Hastings, I understand Ada as well. That's all the other Sussex councils who have set a local precedent, and Crawley would be now, in my view, at a disadvantage to those other areas when it comes about getting the best out of LGR for our area. As it is, our neighbours in Horsham and Mid Sussex, who we will be joining up with, don't have scheduled council elections, and I want the members and officers of this council to have the same capacity over the next 14 months as our neighbours do. Now, there's good supporting evidence in tonight's report to warrant requesting a deferral. However, the report doesn't mention that we'll be also setting up a new Crawley Town Council, which is clearly going to be an additional major piece of work with very limited time to get it right. And even though I wasn't the most ardent supporter of a town council, I still want to make sure that we get it right for the people of Crawley. And finally, I take the view that LGR is the government's process and they should fully own the decision about elections. And the only way to get the government to make a fully considered determination, one way or the other, is to submit the letter to request deferral. The government letter to us is very clear that this is the only way the government will make an actual judgment. If the government then say 1 year elections should take place, then that's fine, as they will have fully considered it and decided that. Therefore, if you want to back the whole thing back to the government, as I think we should do, then voting for the letter to request a deferral is the best way to go about it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that we've been given the opportunity by the Leader of the Council and yourself to have this debate at full council, given the importance of the decision being made, and so residents have an opportunity to hear the reasoning behind how their local councillor intends to vote. I'm fully supportive of the local elections going ahead in May. The letter from the Minister asks us to consider whether postponement would free up capacity to deliver local government reorganisation. However, paragraph 6.2 of the report from our Chief Executive clearly states that no organisational capacity constraints have been identified. It also confirms the resources required to run elections are separate to those working on LGR. I have concerns about the potential for inconsistency across local authorities. For example, the way one council assesses capacity challenges may differ significantly from another. Without a clear framework for defining capacity and its measurement, we do not have the necessary tools to justify cancelling the local elections. Officers at Crawley Borough Council have been preparing for these elections for several months, well before the Minister's letter was received. The Council was on track to deliver them, and importantly, Crawley Borough Council did not request postponement in its LGR submission. I do not believe there is sufficient evidence to justify a change in approach now. Residents in Crawley deserve the opportunity to exercise their democratic right, and as councillors, it is our responsibility to champion that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Kiran Khan.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. First of all, I want to acknowledge how grateful I am that we are having this debate in full session and that we were allowed this extraordinary council meeting. I would also like to thank the public for turning up and taking an interest in today's discussion. My vote will be fully supportive of the borough elections going ahead. Now, I do not think it's right that we were given democratic power to then run things at the council, but the only reason we are here is because the residents of Crawley put us here. So I don't think it's right for that power to then be taken for granted. I have read the report and I am fully supportive of Appendix B, which is the letter requesting that the elections go ahead. There is not evidence enough that satisfies me to think that postponing the elections is the correct thing to do. I think that the people of Crawley do deserve their elections, and the LGR process, as flawed as it was, I mean, I disagreed with LGR as soon as it came out, but that's another matter. But that process should not be used as an excuse to then cancel these elections or postpone these elections. Whether these elections do not go ahead or go ahead, LGR will still be there. I don't see this process of having an election going to negatively impact the resources of having an election, because as the report outlines, the resources are there, and the costs, as expensive as they are, I mean, that's the price of democracy. And that's the price of a democratic council and a democratic state. It is incompatible with a democratic state to postpone elections, and I think the people of Crawley should have their elections, and I will be fully supportive of Appendix B. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Before I make my more formal comments, I would just like to say that nobody can doubt my commitment to democracy. A few hours after my brother confirmed that he had secured semi-final tickets tonight for our beloved Chelsea, I then opened my council emails and saw we had this emergency meeting. Well, here I am, committed to democracy. I realise, having listened to colleagues on both sides of the House, that the notes that I've prepared, I think, are probably more of a plea to everybody here, everybody listening, everybody who might take a moment to think, a plea on the processes of democracy and democratic conduct. As I said, all my life I've been totally committed to democracy, and that said, it hasn't always been at the high level that it has now in terms of my actual involvement, usual leafleting, canvassing, activities like that, mostly because of my manic obsession with football. But in 2021, I had a bit of a seminal moment, and this is partly as a result of my job as a secondary school teacher. On a personal note, I'd be deeply troubled by the conduct I'd seen by people in the highest office in the land, in our democratic system. I was also teaching classes who themselves, young adults who were themselves also deeply upset with what they were seeing. What is this all about? What is democracy? You keep telling us it's so important and that you should be involved. Yes, I do, and I stand by that. Well, what are you doing? I had thrown at me. Oh. And at that moment, I thought, that's one of the best challenges I've ever had as a secondary school teacher. And I thought it was necessary then to start getting involved. And that means more democratic involvement. However, the concerns I think I had for democracy in that moment are more significant now. Because my concerns are about the conduct that we see in the current political discourse. I've always wished for courtesy and kindness and a willingness to disagree amicably. And I'm worried that we're beginning to see that evaporating as we see a toxification of the language being used across our democratic system. It's as if somebody has set the anger dial to 11. There seems also to be a determination amongst some to create division, discord and disruption for their own short-term gain. None of these political measures will do anything, none of these political devices will do anything other than weaken democracy. It doesn't matter if it's Caesar using the mob for his own popularis approach. It doesn't matter if it's the paramilitaries intimidating elected representatives entering the Berlin Opera House. And it doesn't matter if it's a defeated candidate telling his supporters to fight like hell. They all undermine the core need for an effective democracy, which is that of respect and courtesy. Sadly, prior to this meeting, we've seen an angry drift in the public discourse, and that deeply concerns me. I go back to what I say. Kindness and courtesy are incredibly important. That said, none of this drives me away from my core, absolute commitment to democracy. And it may be that and it saddens me to say this, it may be that the country that I love has to learn the importance of civil discourse in its democratic procedures. It has to relearn the importance of being polite and kind to each other. I accept all the points made by my colleagues on both sides, but for me, the arguments are not strong enough. Thank you. For me, the arguments are not strong enough to ask for a suspension of elections. I believe that we're too far out. I believe that whilst the cost is not insignificant, it is something that we should be prepared to bear as part of the democratic process. And I do believe that our officers have the capacity to run the elections and organise this. This is why, and with full respect to colleagues that I disagree with, I will be supporting a continuation of the elections. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Mullins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the strangest meeting I've ever been to in all my years when I've been in contact with Crawley Borough Council. I never did think I would see the like. I've been around politics the whole of my life, right back from when my father came back from the Second World War, came back to Crawley, joined the Labour Party and vowed that things were not going to go back to the way they were in the 30s. In 1974, I moved back to Crawley with my family. And I became very politically active. I joined the Labour Party, and over the last 50 years, I've taken part in over 50 local elections, campaigning, knocking on doors. Oh, sorry. But canvassing, knocking on doors and talking to people over the years, 50 years. That's 50 local elections. And on top of that, over 13 general elections. I've been around for a long, long time. This is the weirdest time now for Crawley. In 2 years and 2 months, that's 26 months from today, Crawley Borough Council will no longer exist. It will be gone. We will not be swallowed up into a much bigger unitary authority. At the moment, we don't even know what shape that's going to be. In 1 year and 3 months, that's 15 months from today, the most important elections for Crawley will take place. They are the elections that will govern who will represent the people of Crawley in the new unitary authority. In that short amount of time, as has already been said, there is a massive amount of work to be done for Crawley's residents, and it needs to be done carefully, with experience, with knowledge, with understanding, with confidence. New people will be coming in to represent the new Unity Authority in just over a year, and they will be shadowing the people who are sitting here today, and they will be taking on from those people how to go forward to build that new authority. They will need every bit of experience that we have to offer. This is a complex organisation. Crawley Borough Council is responsible for so many things. You come in here as a new councillor, you have the huge learning curve to take place. Somebody across the room here said it can take a year. In my experience, it takes a lot longer to understand how the council works, what the council is responsible for, what it needs to carry out to be efficient and serve the people of this town. There's a massive implication for our residents if we don't get the forward thinking right. This year, next year, when we have our shadow cabinet and our shadow council, that's the times that we need really careful thought of how we go forward. When, as has been said on both sides of the chamber, we have been let down by government because it's been left to us to think and worry and decide what is the best thing to go forward for Crawley. But we have to make that decision, and we're all making it. Now, I don't think there's a single person sitting on either side of this chamber who hasn't thought about this really, really carefully, really gone into all the whys and wherefores and what's the best way forward. 50 years of my life has been spent expecting an election to come forward every May, not even thinking about it. It's just like Easter, Christmas, your summer holidays, Guy Fawkes Night, elections. That's what happens every year. We'll win some, lose some, it doesn't matter. But this year is something really special. 70 years Crawley has been building as a new town. We have progressed. We have produced fantastic facilities for our residents. We need to protect them. We need the people who are sitting here today who understand what's needed for Crawley, what assets we have, what we need to protect, what we need to look after, and what we need to make sure gets handed over to the new unitary authority in as best package we possibly can. And I'm very sorry to say that after 50 years, this is the only time you'll ever hear me say, postpone these elections, go into next year with renewed vigour and bring it forward.
Councillor Bushnell.
Yeah, it's actually Councillor Chariton. My unit's packed up. It's not working. So if that's okay, I do have her permission, Councillor Bushnell's permission. So okay. Well, we've got to swap seats. Oh, right, okay. Let's do that then. Oh dear, oh dear. Go on. And I'll take the mic as well. Right. This is, yeah. Technical difficulties. Yeah, for sure. I should shut up, really, shouldn't I? I just wanted to add, firstly, let me thank the leader of the council and the mayor for offering us the opportunity to speak here. I think it's important. I think this is such an important decision. It should be transparent. I think the public expect it to be transparent. I don't know what the outcome of this evening is going to be. There's clearly, we are all voting individually, and I want that to be clear. We're voting individually. We've not been whipped. We've not been told which way to vote. We're voting on our consciences. And I know some people, there's obviously, we can hear this strong feeling about whether we should go ahead from the public. The public's turned up here this evening. Strong feeling about whether we should hold these elections or not. I don't know if that's representative of the entirety of Crawley, Who knows? It's a small sample. There has been some calls to people. Let's assume that it's at least somewhat representative. You can hear the unhappiness at the thought that we potentially might not be holding elections. It may only be a year. I hear all those arguments. I respect those arguments. They are sound arguments for not holding the elections. But I'm also hearing our chief executive saying, as far as he's concerned, and he's the man at the centre of this organisation, he's the professional, if you like, that runs the organisation, telling us that from his perspective, he does not foresee that there's a big capacity issue here. That kind of weakens our argument for not holding the election. But I respect what people are saying about, particularly Councillor Mullins was saying, yes, I agree, councillors, it does take quite a long time to, it may not be appreciated by the public, but it takes a while. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And there's a lot of procedures, a lot of things that we have to follow. Legally, we have to follow. Procedurally, we have to follow. We don't have any options about that. That's part of the issue of being a councillor. It isn't. You can't come in and just do whatever you like. It doesn't work that way, and it does take a while to understand and become familiar with those procedures. Having said that, I think, and my reason for voting against any postponement of the debate is twofold. Firstly, yes, I know there'll be other elections coming up in a year or so's time. There is an expectation to be able to vote. And even though it causes some difficulty, I think we have to go with that public expectation. That's the first thing. But the most important thing to me is that in the current toxic environment, when there is so much antipathy, so much distrust of politicians and the political process, to postpone elections now feeds right into the hands of those who would claim that democracy isn't working here and only they have the solution. That's why, principally, the 2 points is I believe in democracy, I believe votes should be available to people, and I want to deny those troublemakers, the stirrers, the opportunity to claim that we are not democratic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hilton.
I can see one. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Firstly, as others have said, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have a free vote for this evening's meeting and for each and every member of full council to make their own individual decision on the way forward tonight. In arriving at my conclusion, I've carefully reviewed the report attached to the agenda for tonight's meeting, CX74 refers, and can comment as follows. In relation to section 6.2 of the said report, it's evident that despite the challenges of local government reorganisation, LGR, the council still has the capacity to run the elections in May, which the Minister has said is a key criteria for the government when it determines whether the elections should go ahead here and in other places. When arriving at these conclusions about capacity issues, I've also carefully considered and weighed up all the short-term and longer-term factors outlined in section 6.3 of the report and the implications outlined in section 7. I also know the report touches on the costs of elections, which, because of local government reorganisation, lower tier authorities such as Crawley Borough have now had to consider as an additional factor. Whether they're a county or borough, apart from COVID and last year, elections have been a yearly feature of council life that Crawley Borough Council has just got on with and organised. And as Councillor Barrett has already stated, the preparations for this year are well underway. While I have considered the cost of the elections, I've also taken into account the value of democracy in giving local residents the opportunity to vote for their chosen candidate and party, even if a majority electorate actually chose not to vote for anybody and not vote at all. I'm also aware that councils that are larger than Crawley, who also elect their councillors in thirds, namely Southampton and Portsmouth, have very recently decided not to postpone their elections this year, despite the increased pressures they must be facing because of local government reorganisation. When, as others have said, it's taken a long time to think about what to do tonight and all the other issues. But when thinking and preparing for tonight's meeting, I remembered that when I was elected in 2024, I told readers of the Crawley Observer that I wanted a kinder type of politics. I think we all understand that local politics is about people doing what they think is best for the community, and inevitably there are differences of opinions and situations when feelings run high, and sometimes there's a little bit of humour, but on the whole, it's serious stuff, and we take it seriously. However, lines can be easily crossed, particularly in the world of social media. So, whatever the outcome of tonight's meeting, I hope that representatives of all political parties do not make or share posts that invite social media pylons and personal abuse. In conclusion, it is my strongly held view that Borough Council elections in May 2026 should go ahead, and I will be voting that letter contained in Appendix B of the report to the full Council tonight should be sent to the Secretary of State.
Thank you. Councillor Ashraf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I intend to support postponement of the May elections. Let me be clear, this is not about ducking accountability. Residents' right to vote matters, and any deferral must be exceptional, tightly time-limited, and justified. But local government reorganization is once in a generation change. And the next phase is not politics as usual. It is implementation, governance, finance, staffing, contracts, and clear communication to the public. Holding an election now would mean asking candidates and voters to invest time and money for a council that is expected to be replaced, with councillors potentially serving only a short transitional term. That risks distraction and churn at exactly the moment we need stability and focus. There is also a practical point. Postponement avoids over 100,000 of election costs that could be better used protecting frontline services during transition. And we are not alone in taking this view. I understand that neighbouring councils, including Ada and Worthing, are also writing to government in support of postponement. Because this is about managing the transition responsibly across Sussex. So I support postponement to release capacity and reduce risk, but I also want us to strengthen accountability during the transition year. Transparent oversight, regular public reporting, and restraint on major long-term decisions unless they are clearly necessary and publicly explained. This is a practical decision in the public interest. Focus on smooth reorganization, protect services, and give residents clarity, not confusion, about what they are voting for and when. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Mullins.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been around this council since 1983, which is a long time. And in all those years, I've experienced the success of Crawley. We've always built and created services, made provisions for our people, and these things are appreciated by Crawley people. And we look back and we think, what an achievement was made by those people who before me got together and started to design this new town, as it was called then. And what an exciting and lovely place it is, and it still is. So what we're faced with tonight is a discussion about how we can best go forward, really, and what the strategy for that going forward should be. What we've got before us tonight is those decisions, simply whether to miss out one election this year and then to be able to build for the future elections, as been described already by other people, into the new unitary authority. This is not about any of this, about the loss of democracy, not at all. But it's about the reorganisation on the local government reorg. And we all believe in democracy on this side, as we wouldn't be here. All of us are Democrats, and we need to work together. Now, I think, we've battled both sides of this chamber over the years, but I think this is a time when both sides of this chamber should find it in themselves to work together for the common cause, and that common cause is Crawley, its residents, and its facilities and services that this council historically has provided. And we can do that together. It's not going to need to be a political thing now. It's got to be a practical thing about how we associate with the new unitary authority, how we work the town council, and how we look after the facilities that we've managed to retain in Crawley. And it's a massive, massive job that we're about to face. And people have been talking about experience of councillors. Well, in the old days, we used to say that the first term as a councillor was an apprenticeship. And when I look back on that, I realise how true that is. Council business is exceedingly complicated. It's not simple. It's difficult to understand. It takes a while to get your head around the finances and the way that they work. You need to get to know the staff and the structure. You need to know who to deal with when you've got an issue or a problem that's presented to you by a resident. There's an awful lot to being a councillor, and this isn't a time now, at the end of our life as Crawley Borough Council, for us to be taking on new councillors. We really do need to bring our experience together. We need that continuity of experience so that we can go in together. And I appeal to my Tory colleagues as well, that we don't need to be fighting over any of this. We can work together if we have the will to do it. And I would like to think that we could do that. The outcome should be the best outcome for Crawley as we go into the... Am I getting short? As we go into the new system. Listen, let me just remind you of the things I'm talking about then. And let's put it this way. What is going to happen to K2? How's that going to be run? Who's going to control it? It brings us about £1 million a year into Crawley. That is going to be attractive to somebody else, but we need to find a way of keeping it. The Horth, we've just made new contracts with the Horth that are going to return finances to the people of Crawley. Tilgate Park is vital to Crawley. It's in the top 10 TripAdvisors. We need to make sure we protect Tilgate Park and the zoo that's in there, and indeed the golf course that's there. Football ground, Crawley Town, a rugby club, and many sports fields. And what is going to happen to council housing? We are one of the rare councils that's still got council housing. Mayor, I never do have enough time, I know. But listen, we have a duty to protect Crawley. And the only way we can do that is by working together on this serious and very big list of activities that's going to take experienced councillors to deal it with.
Time's up. Thank you. Right. Currently, we have one further speaker. Can I just check if any further members wish to speak? Right. Thank you. Councillor Irvine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I first of all say that I have absolutely no problem with the Chief Executive's report. I thought it was a very excellent example of clarity and brevity, explained the issues and got to the point. And I think the reason why the Town Council's not mentioned in it is because nothing's yet been decided on whether or not the Town Council is going to head. The town council issue is something of a red herring, I think. But having thought about this a great deal, Madam Mayor, I'm going to stick with my initial thoughts when I first heard about this. And those thoughts were to vote for the elections to go ahead, unless anyone can convince me otherwise. Apart from the question of democracy, and I'm going to repeat a few things that other people have said because I think they're worth repeating and because I have my speech already prepared before I came out. But as following on from what Councillor Barrett said so eloquently, the Government Minister's letter states that the Secretary of State is only minded to make an order to postpone elections for 1 year for those councils who have capacity concerns. It's quite clear, Madam Mayor, we don't have any capacity concerns. Therefore, how can we, in all seriousness, ask for the elections to be postponed? It's been argued that elections have been cancelled during reorganisations elsewhere in previous years, but that was with different governments and with different criteria. And as we know, the past is a foreign country and they do things differently there. And they didn't always necessarily do things better. I think it's reasonable to cancel elections in times of emergency such as war or pandemic, but no emergency applies in this case. And I've been a councillor for a long time. I mean, I first got elected in 1986. I haven't been a councillor all that time, but I think I've done about 25 years. And I've seen many times councillors come straight from being a member of the public to being elected to council to coming in to being the chair of a committee or a cabinet member with no previous experience and doing a first-class job. So, you know, in a way, it's like being a mini MP. If an MP enters the House of Parliament, they hit the ground running. There's no sort of great induction or training period. They just get on with it because you are a representative of the people. And like every other councillor, you have the right to speak and you have the right to vote. So I think that, unless it's a war or pandemic or a similar emergency, there's no reason to cancel elections, and there is no emergency that applies in this case. So I hope that if anyone has come here tonight intending to vote for cancellation, they will think again and vote to ask the government that our Crawley elections proceed. And can I just finish by saying, we've heard tonight that Ada Council, Worthing Council and other councils have voted to ask the government to postpone. I actually don't really care that much what they want to do. It's what we do in Crawley that matters.
There are no further speakers. I now seek councillors to move and second options to be voted upon. Please remember, this is not another chance to speak again or promote any particular option. You are simply stating that you are moving or seconding an option to be voted on. Any options not moved at this point will by default be deemed as not being taken forward. Councillor Jones. Councillor Khan.
Yes, I would like to forward Appendix B. Thank you.
I was hoping to set proposing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to propose a motion to send Appendix B letter to the Secretary of State tomorrow and send the recommendation to Cabinet later. As I've said earlier, I strongly believe in the decision and the recommendation to vote and the elections continue. As I've stated, there's capacity for elections. They're on the way now. We're preparing them now. I've weighed up all the different factors as well surrounding that. And other councils have decided already that elections who vote in thirds should go ahead. So on all those technical matters, there is no reason not to carry on with the elections this year. There are some other precedents as well. Pardon? No. No.
Is that in favour that borough election in 2026 should go ahead?
Yes.
Thank you. Right. Can I have a seconder?
I apologise for that earlier. I will second Appendix B. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Inconsistent with my speech, I'll propose Appendix C. And I don't intend to go over my speech again, but I believe that the case has been well made historically and indeed locally as well. So therefore, I would recommend to Cabinet that they submit the letter recommending a deferral to government.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any seconder? Yes, Councillor Belbin.
I second the proposal to postpone.
Are there any further seconder? Any further options? No? Okay. Yeah. Okay. If not, we will move to the vote, as there has been a request for recorded vote. No, sorry. Okay. No. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Just want to answer.
We haven't done the proposal.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We will now start that process. I'm going to.
We haven't done
That's fine.
Appendix B. We don't know. What Appendix B?
No, she's done it.
We will now start the process. I'm going to pass the voting process over the Democracy and Data Manager to conduct the voting process on my behalf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for clarification purposes on the recorded vote, I will call members' names out. Please wait till you're shown on the screen before putting across your view, which can include to abstain. Just to repeat, there are two options being voted upon. In favour that the borough elections 2026 take place. In favour the borough elections 2026 should be postponed, or to abstain. They're the only options on the table.
Sorry, can we just clarify? So what is it you're actually going to call out and ask members to respond with, just to be clear? Thank you.
So if it makes it easier for members, it's to go ahead or to postpone, if that makes it clearer for the voting purposes, or to abstain. That makes it nice and clear. It's no, it's simply go ahead or postpone, because so it makes it nice and clear for everyone here. Or abstain, yeah, because it's not yes or no. Is every member happy with understanding the voting process before we start? That being said, we will start the process. Councillor Abu Musa.
Good evening, thank you. I support postpone the election. Thank you.
Councillor Azanay.
Postponement of the election.
Councillor Ashraf.
Not come on. Yep, there you go.
Postpone.
Councillor Ayling.
I support to proceed with the election.
Councillor Barrett.
The election should go ahead.
Councillor Belbin.
I vote to postpone.
Councillor Bidwell.
Abstain.
Councillor Burgess. The mic's gone. Yeah, that's fine. I will relay it. Councillor Burgess said postpone. Councillor Burke.
Thank you. I vote for the elections to go ahead.
Councillor Bushnell.
Postpone.
Councillor Cheriton.
I vote that the election should go ahead.
Postpone.
Councillor Hilton.
I vote that the election should go ahead.
Councillor Irvine.
Go ahead.
Councillor Jaggard.
Postpone.
Councillor Johans.
I vote for the elections to go ahead.
Councillor Jones.
Go ahead.
Sorry? Councillor Intimus Khan, I think your microphone's going, so if you can say it and I'll repeat it. He said, Councillor Intimus Khan says postpone.
Can I ask the public to not make any comments, please?
Councillor Kieran Khan.
I vote that the elections should go ahead as planned.
Councillor Yasmin Khan, please shout, your microphone's crashed. Councillor Yasmin Khan said postpone. Councillor Lunnan.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the TV. Postpone.
Councillor Chris Mullins. Councillor Sue Mullins.
Reasons I gave, postpone.
Councillor Mangali.
Postpone.
Councillor Nawaz.
Abstain.
Councillor Noyce.
The election should go ahead.
Councillor Patel.
The election should go ahead.
Councillor Pritchard.
Postpone.
Councillor Ramsey.
The election should go ahead.
Councillor Rana.
Thank you. I support a postponement.
Councillor Russell.
Proceed with the elections.
Councillor Sivaraja.
The election should go ahead.
And finally, Councillor Yanni.
It should be postponed.
Thank you. I'm just going to count this out.
I must ask for a silence in the chamber, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I can, on behalf of the Mayor, votes in favour of borough elections taking place were 14, votes in favour of the borough elections being postponed, 17, and two abstentions. I can confirm the full council's resolution is that the election should be postponed, and that's the view to be passed on. There's two. The Mayor didn't abstain.
No.
No, it was 14.
There are no further items of business. I declare this extraordinary meeting of the Council closed. I respectfully request that all councillors leave the chamber swiftly via the door to the right of the dais into the members' area. The chamber will then be stepped up for the cabinet meeting, which will be starting in approximately 20 minutes' time. Thank you.